What's up, my guys? What's up, my girls? Welcome back to the Dani Flow podcast. I'm your boy, Dani Flow. So this year, not this year because we're only a month in, but in 2 months I'm going to be 31. So a lot of things have happened since I turned 30, but one of the things that's happened that I knew was going to happen was being a father intensified. So I was thinking about this, and I used to listen to this podcast called Right Here, Right Now with Chris Aubert. And I had a desk job at the time. It was a desk job that I did for like 2 years. So it was just computer work, mental work, whatever you want to call it. And so I'd be able to listen to podcasts, and I used to listen to this podcast, and it was a Catholic podcast because I'm hella Catholic. By the way, the other thing that's happened since I turned 30 is like back in July up until this point, I've been uploading fitness shorts. I'm in my basement gym right now. I've just been uploading my workouts, things that I know how to do, workouts that I do, and it's grown the channel. So if you've subscribed because of the fitness shorts, I really appreciate it. I'm glad you're here. It's good to be with you. I hope I've helped you, and I'm gonna keep doing that. I'm gonna keep uploading the fitness shorts. I'm really happy that people seem to like those. I've been lifting 10 years, and so along the way, through mistakes, through talking to other people, through watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, reading a little bit of articles, Googling some stuff, right? You pick up stuff along the way. So that's one of the things that happened. But I'm actually, back to the story, I'm actually not 100% sure that it was the Right Here, Right Now podcast. But the reason I mention it is because back then, that was one of the things that made me realize that I had a philosophical mind and that philosophy interests me. And I feel like back then I didn't really understand what philosophy was. And the reason I say that is because the host of the podcast, like what he actually did, it was actually a radio show and they would release it as a podcast, but what he actually did was he's a lawyer. He had his own law firm, and then he did this podcast. He also did this podcast, so he essentially had two jobs. But I remember that it was either that podcast or just one of the many podcasts, impossible to count podcasts that I've listened to, impossible to count podcast episodes that I listened to, that I remember they mentioned that the former, like, what's that thing called? I think it's McCarthy now, and before that it was Pelosi. I think it's the chairman, the Speaker of the House. I'm pretty sure that's what it is, the Speaker of the House. Well, it used to be like Paul Ryan. And love him or hate him, that's neither here nor there. That's not an essential part of the story. But it was either on that podcast, the Right Here, Right Now podcast, or like I said, any of the other countless podcasts that I listen to, that he like had resigned. And at the time, I don't think at the time I was married, and I don't think I had kids yet, but I remember that the reason they said that he resigned was because like one of his kids was about to turn like 17, and when he was 17, like he had lost his dad, like his dad died. So because his son was like turning 17, he wanted to spend more time with him. And this was years ago. I mean, I had that job from like 2015 to 2017. We're in 2023, so 2, 1, 20, 9, 8. We're talking like 6 years ago, maybe even more than that, right? So I was trying to refresh my memory, and I was looking it up, and I couldn't find exactly that it said like that he resigned to spend more time with his son or whatever, but I did find articles that said that he resigned to spend more time with his family. So I remember at that time that made a lot of sense to me, and I kind of knew that one day that was going to happen to me, because This is the 52nd episode of the Dani Flow podcast. Praise God, we're in our 4th year. Thanks to everyone that stuck around. But I think I've mentioned before that my dad died when I was 4. So I kind of always knew that, like, when I had kids, like when my first kid would turn 4, I knew that, like, it would be something intense, right? Because all of it, like, I don't know if I've been open about this part, but like all of fatherhood to me is like uncharted territory. I didn't have a brother growing up either, so like brotherhood is uncharted territory as well. All I had was like uncles and cousins, and I wasn't into sports, so I didn't really have, like, it's not like some people find like a father figure in their coaches. I didn't have that because I wasn't like into sports, and like my uncles were like busy raising their own family, so like they're not just gonna like tackle an additional project, which I get. So, growing up, it was just my mom and my sisters. So fatherhood is like, all of it is, I mean, even being a husband is like uncharted territory, because it wasn't like a direct thing for me, right? My mom didn't, since my dad died, my mom didn't have like unintentional, like, husband that was trying to be like a husband that was trying to be a father. So this is all uncharted territory for me. But I knew that, like, for sure, like when my firstborn was gonna turn 4, that was definitely gonna be like a pivotal point, for lack of better terminology. And it just so happens that my firstborn is a boy, right? Praise God. So that happened. Yeah, that definitely happened. I turned 30, and then my son turned 4. So it just, at the time, it just seemed so far away, right? It just seemed like one day when I have my own children, when he or she turns 4, it's gonna be like this intense thing, and it was. And when my son was younger, so the way that it looks is, like I said, it's all uncharted territory, and I'm just trying to figure it out as I go along. And I think I'm starting to realize that, like, even men that had good fathers growing up, I think, they have a plus, because they had, if their dad is still living, they kind of have their dad as a resource. But even them, we're all just trying to figure it out as we go along. And even like let you take somebody who maybe had a good father. That good father, when he was raising his son, he might have had his father, but he was also trying to just figure it out along the way, right? So what does it look like for me? When my son was younger, I was working a lot. I was working a full-time job, and I was working a part-time job. And my full-time job was 40 hours, Monday through Friday, 8 to 4, let's say, 7 to 3, It wasn't around there. And then I'd work in the afternoons. I'd work at the very least, I would work 3 nights. Excuse me. I'd work 3 nights at my part-time job. But at the very most, like, I'd work like 5, 6 nights. So I mean, I was putting anywhere between, like 3 nights would be 12. So I was putting anywhere between 52 to like 78 hours. Anywhere from there, it fluctuated, right? It wasn't like since it was a part-time job, it wasn't like a set thing. Sometimes I'd work more, sometimes I'd work less, depending on what I thought I needed, depending on what I was trying to accomplish. And so my son was young, right? Like, it was like 1, 2, and it was cool because I'd get home and he'd be excited to see me. And it's a great experience, great feeling to come home and your wife is happy to see you, your baby boy is happy to see you. It's great. But I started to notice that now that he's older, now that he turned 4, his intellect is developing and he's more aware, right? So he started to ask me like where I was at all the time. And I know what that's like, right? Because like when I was 4, I was wondering where my dad was, but he wasn't coming back. So that had an impact on me. So what that looks like for me is I'm working less and I'm just trying to find that balance that I think every father is on a quest to find, right? Because I think men, I mean, I don't want to speak for all men, but I think like as far as me, it makes me feel like good to provide, makes me feel useful, gives me a purpose, right, to be able to provide for my wife, provide for my boys. So I definitely want to keep doing that, and I'm gonna keep doing that. But at the same time, and like I'm working less now. Like I'm working about 50 hours. So I still have my full-time job and I got my part-time job. But I only put in like 10 hours at my part-time job. And I'm trying to instill a routine with him, because even though like I'm working less, he still notices. Like he will ask me, he'll say, are you gonna work a lot today, or are you gonna work a little? And I just tell him the truth. Today is a day that I'm gonna work a lot, tomorrow's a day that I'm gonna work a lot, but this day I'm gonna be home in the afternoon with you. On the weekends I'm gonna be with you, this and that. So that's how fatherhood that's what it looks like as of right now. I'm sure it's gonna get more intense, and I think for any man who has children, as long as you're not like as long as you didn't abandon your kids, and maybe even men that have abandoned their kids, maybe there'll come a point where it's gonna get intense for them, like I shouldn't have done that, and they maybe are gonna try to find a way to have a relationship with their kids. But I think obviously for people like me who are married to the mother of their children, I think we're all gonna get to a point where our fatherhood intensifies, and where it's gonna be more intentional, and it's gonna be more. For people like me who like got married and had kids, obviously it was always an important thing, but it's gonna get more intense. And I also think people who aren't necessarily with the mother of the children, maybe the relationship didn't work out. I think just for any father, it's gonna get intense, and it's gonna look different for everybody. You know what I'm saying? But that at this point, as a 30-year-old father, 30-year-old husband and father, who's about to be 31, whose son is 4 years old, that's what it looks like for me. I'm just looking for that sweet spot as of right now. I'm sure when he's older, he's not gonna, right now he's at home all day, so he probably just wants me here all the time, and I want to be here with him all the time too. So, and if you're not a dad, just know that that's something that's gonna happen to you if you do have kids. That's something, like I said, when I heard that podcast, when I heard that story about that speaker who was like, okay, my son's turning 17, I'm gonna go ahead and step down from this isn't as important as like spending time with him, because when I was his age, like my dad died. So back then I didn't have kids, and I knew that this point was gonna get here, and here it is. So that's what I wanted to share with you guys. Thanks again for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks to all the people who have joined the channel because of the fitness shorts. Like I said, I'm still gonna do that. But this podcasting thing is something that I wanted to do for a long time, and I put off. And it's been kind of sporadic. So just like with the working thing, it's something that I gotta find a balance with. So like and subscribe, share the episode, leave me a comment. What's cool is my most popular episode was like the very first episode that I put out. It's not on YouTube because I only started uploading videos on YouTube when, people who didn't have Anchor, people who didn't have Apple or Spotify, they were like, well, is it on YouTube? Is it on YouTube? So around episode 11, 12, I started uploading it on YouTube. But my most popular episode, like on the podcast platforms, is my first episode. So I was pleasantly surprised that the second most popular episode is episode 51, where I was talking about your lifetimes and how to break up your lifetime. So check that episode out if you haven't checked it out. And I hope that this episode does as well as that one. But if it doesn't, that doesn't mean I'm not going to make another one. So like I said, like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. If you prefer just audio, check it out on Spotify, Apple. Go ahead and leave a review, and we'll catch you in the next one. And remember what Venerable Fulton Sheen said, your life is worth living. Talk to you next time.